What is going on, everybody? I am super excited to jump into our third movie review, and I got my brother Greg back on the channel. We'll be
How you
live
doing?
tonight, and if you guys haven't done so, please subscribe, ring that bell, and hit that thumbs up. But Greg, what movie did you want to talk about today?
I don't know. What movie did you have in mind?
I was thinking we'd talk about Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Well, let me go get my shine box real fast. We're going to talk about Goodfellas.
Of course, the infamous line from Goodfellas. There are so many great lines throughout this movie.
Oh, it's one of those movies that probably has the most quotable lines ever.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Made in 1990, directed by Martin Scorsese, which it's ridiculous that it took him that long to win Best Director, by the way.
No, he didn't win Best Director for this. He doesn't win Best
No,
Director.
I know he didn't win it for
No,
this.
okay,
I'm
yeah.
saying he just won it, though.
No, well, yeah. Well, now
yeah.
it's a couple of years ago.
For
Now it's
Departed. Yeah.
Departed's like 13 years ago now.
Okay, yeah, you're right. But it took him a long time.
It definitely took a lot of shots to get it.
Yeah, starring Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci, our three favorite mobsters. And some of the awards that it was nominated for, it was nominated for 5 awards, and it won 1. Joe Pesci won Best Supporting Actor. It was nominated for Best Picture, nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Best Director Martin Scorsese, Best Film Editing, and Best Writing. So actually 6 awards. And another interesting fact we were talking about before we went live is the woman who plays the wife in this movie of Ray Liotta was originally casted to play the wife in Sopranos. She later played.
She was gonna play. Yeah, she was gonna play the wife in Sopranos, but they didn't want to do it because of typecasting. So instead of playing the wife, she ends up playing Dr. Melfi, his therapist, and that's obviously another infamous role of hers.
Yeah, for sure. She was one of the most popular characters on that show. And then some really interesting facts that we were talking about before. As a joke, Robert De Niro put a horse in Ray Liotta's trailer.
A horse's head. Horse's head.
To initiate him into the mafioso movies, an obvious reference to The Godfather.
That's really funny. But it's a true story. He really did that.
It was based on a book called Wise Guy. I guess that's what the movie was based off of.
Wise Guys, yeah.
And Al Pacino was originally offered the role of Jimmy Conway, which, of course, was played by Robert De Niro, and he turned it down because he didn't want to play a part of a gangster. But, Greg, tell him what's the funniest part about that fact.
The funniest part about that whole thing is this came out in 1990, the same year as Dick Tracy, where he plays whatever the bad guy's name is. That's Paulie Walnuts, something Walnuts, whatever his name is. Regardless, he ends up playing the main gangster in a very underwhelming gangster movie as opposed to playing the lead in the most infamous gangster movie maybe ever.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to play a gangster, and then he ended up playing a gangster in a worse movie the same exact year it came out.
Yeah, not even close. He says it's actually one of the biggest regrets of his career, too. Which, I'd never lived that down.
Yeah, you're talking about you're possibly the greatest gangster movie ever.
I guess if you're Pacino, though, you got a couple of great gangster movies still under your belt. It's not like somebody totally missed, but it's still a pretty big miss.
Yeah, it's a pretty big miss. And then obviously when you think gangster films, you think, cursing, obviously. And a really interesting fact, the most F words ever in a movie was in this movie at the time, at least. It might have been surpassed since, but in 1998, it broke the record. The F word was dropped 321 times throughout the course of this movie, or on average 2 per minute.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of F-bombs dropped in here. Another funny thing is, I should have brought this up before when you did Oscars, but the one Oscar that was won, obviously, was Joe Pesci for the Best Supporting Actor, and he was so convinced they didn't have a chance at winning, they didn't write any speech for his speech, and it ended up that when he won, he had the shortest speech in the history of the Oscars, consisting of, "It's my privilege, thank you." And that was his whole entire speech, and then he walked up the stage.
So this movie just jumps into it with the 3 main characters sitting in the. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like foreshadowing, right? And I love when movies do that. And you see this scene later in the movie, but you see all the 3 main characters in the car together. And then it shines. It says that it's based on a true story, and then it takes you throughout the scene. I'll let you give your thought process on how the movie opens up.
Well, when the movie opens up, it's one of those great openings where the whole entire, they got Billy Bats in the trunk. At the time, you don't know it's Billy Bats, but that's who it is. It's Billy Bats in the trunk, and they're bringing them to, they're going to dig a hole and get rid of the body, basically. All of a sudden, they start here knocking on it, knocking on the trunk. They pull over, a guy's still alive. Joe Pesci pulls out a little switchblade or something. No, he pulls out his mom's butcher knife.
Right. And we'll get into that. That's a great scene.
Yeah. Yeah, he pulls out the butcher knife and he starts, stabbing him away. And then, they have that great line that comes right after that where Ray Liotta goes, so it's that famous line for as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Then the freeze frame and it cuts back to when he was younger. It's a great line. It's a great opening.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opening, the way they jump into it. And one thing that really stood out to me, first off, they don't know what it is. They think it could be gas or something, and then they realize that there's a guy in the back of their trunk that's still alive that they thought they had killed at the bar earlier in the movie.
Yes.
But the thing that really stood out to me was when they get behind the car, the red brake lights like shine on their faces, and obviously,
the red brake lights definitely add a lot to like the feeling, I guess, of suspense of what's going on in the whole situation. It's definitely the movie's fantastically put together. I mean, forget about the story and forget about the story, like all the one-liners and stuff. The movie put together by Scorsese is a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean the red lights to me just kind of signified death. Obviously, you're seeing it, shining right in their faces, and then Pesci finishes off the job. He stabs him like 8 times, and then obviously Deniro wants to make sure, so he shoots 4 bullets into him after he's already dead. But yeah, that was just a great way to open up the scene, and then like you said, it kind of flashes back to when he was a kid, and he talks about dreaming to want to be a gangster. He said that it was something that he aspired to be, something he looked up to.
Say he'd rather be that than the president of the United States.
Yeah, he'd rather be that than the president of the United States, and his father always tried to deter him from doing that. You see scenes where he's beating him up, and
the kid also looks at it like something that's nothing wrong with it. Also, they show his parents that obviously don't want him to be involved in his life at all, and he doesn't. He's not hearing it at all. He thinks they're legitimately wrong, and he's going out and he's hustling cigarettes and stuff like that for them, and blowing up cars, doing all this crazy stuff. It's just a little kid, and to him, it's not a big deal. Even to the point where he does finally get arrested. He gets arrested with selling the cigarettes, and I guess it's not the cops because the cops are paying off with the cigarettes. It's probably the FBI or something. They show up there and they ask him what he's doing, and he says he's selling cigarettes. And he keeps telling them, "No, don't worry, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah,
it's all right. It's all right." And then they just throw him in jail, which leads to that scene where they get him out. He goes up before the judge. He's got this lawyer with this huge grin on his face or whatever. And case gets dismissed or whatever, and then there's the next great line where he goes, "I'm not mad you got pinched. I'm happy for you. You learned not to rat on your friends, basically."
Yeah, no. And then they were all celebrating and said that he busted his cherry. But another really good line that I wanted to bring up at the beginning was when you first get introduced to Paulie. You see him, him looking across the street, and in his head, he's talking about how, he aspired to be a gangster more so than the president of the United States. And then you see Paulie for the first time, and the line goes, Paulie might have moved slow, but it was because Paulie didn't have to move for anybody. I thought that was a great line.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great line. Way to set up Paulie, especially a great way to introduce Paulie.
Yeah, and Paulie, of course, if you guys do not know, was that the head of the family. He was the guy in charge. He was the boss. And another thing that I really realized throughout this entire movie, but it really hit me from the beginning, it is just constant background music, like old Italian songs.
That's one thing I was talking about. The songs and just the whole entire, any song that's playing this whole entire movie. They got the old Italian songs all the way up to the Layla, in the famous. We'll get to the Layla scene later, but I mean, the music in this movie, it's like, you can't beat it.
Yeah, the music in this movie definitely sets the tone throughout the entire movie, and it really adds to a lot of the scenes. And there are a lot of great scenes we're going to get to. The other thing I just love all the lines. Another line that I remember at the beginning that I wrote down was, one day one of the kids in the neighborhood carried my mom's groceries all the way home. You know why? Out of respect. Yeah, because everybody was just, so scared of him because he was a mobster, and he kind of just affiliated with that, with being respected, even though a lot of people look down on people like that. He felt like he was almost like a celebrity or a hero, I feel
like this movie makes you feel like that too, especially in the first 3/4 of it. This movie makes these guys feel like mobsters and heroes. Probably the reason so many people love it also. I mean, at that point in the movie, you're almost looking at it that way. I mean, by the time you get to the end of the movie, they don't look nearly as good, obviously. But at that point in the movie, it's definitely like the movie's like designed in order to make you like understand the way he's feeling. It's not something that's just said and you look at it like, what?
Yeah. And there's just so many great lines. Like, when he's a kid growing up and, he's at the, I forgot what business it is, but whatever it is, a guy gets shot and he goes and gets like 8 aprons.
At the pizza place.
The pizza place,
The pizza place. Yeah, he goes, you're a real jerk. You wasted 8 fucking aprons on this guy. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. I got to toughen this kid up.
yeah. Guy's dying. He tries to save him.
Yeah,
It's just
tries
a
to save him,
random
exactly.
stranger that got shot, and he tells him that he's basically a baby because he went and got 8 aprons to try to, I guess keep the blood from coming out.
Exactly, yeah.
That was a great line, and there was another really good one too. Oh yeah, where I think that the first time when they shoved the guy's head in the pizza oven because he
Oh,
shows
yeah.
it shows
Another
his
piece of
family.
mail goes to this family. Even though a piece of mail from that school goes to this guy's house without coming to me first, I'm going to throw you in the oven.
Yeah, just so many great lines that really set the tone throughout the entire movie. But one of my favorite, I think most people's favorite scene, or one of them, is, and there's a couple we were talking about before we started this, was the montage scene at the beginning where you kind of get introduced to all the famous gangsters as the
Oh,
camera's
yeah.
moving
I'm going to go
throughout
get
the
the
bar.
papers. Get the papers.
Yeah, and I wrote down every name that they said in the scene: Anthony Stabile, Frankie Carbone, Fat Andy, Mo Black, Frankie the Wop, Freddie No Nose, Pete the Killer, Nicky Eyes, Mickey Franchise, Jimmy Two Times. Like Greg just said, I'm gonna go get the papers. Get the
Get the
papers.
papers.
So that was just a fantastic scene,
I mean,
and
that scene's shot with the steady cam, and that's like one of those really famous shots. That whole thing. I mean, you gotta think about it, when they were filming that. That's one shot. There's no edits there. There's no cutting it. So in order to get that, they had to, continuously refilm it, and everybody's constantly moving. And that you're getting, like you said, you just went down all those characters. The camera goes to every single one of those people. You see every one of those people, and they're doing something. Don't get me wrong, the camera's not on for a long time. But in order to get that shot right, you gotta. Every one of those people has to hit their mark perfectly as the cameras go. It was a really hard thing to do, and it's like because of that, it's just such a cool thing to watch.
no, it's an iconic scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the movie. I mean, there's so many great scenes. But that scene is what that scene is where you really get introduced to like the mafia vibe, that's where you really start to get introduced to the,
And after that, they have that other it's a really good quote. It goes, it's Henry Hill as he's narrating. And he goes, for us to live any other way was nuts. To us, those good, to us the good people worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took subways home every day, worried about the bills. We're dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. They wanted something. We just took it. If anyone complained twice, they got hit so bad. Believe me, they never complained again.
Right. Yeah. So basically saying that, we didn't see the point in working a 9-to-5 job. And then they obviously show it, throughout the movie, like the scene where Pesci's sitting there and the guy tells him that he owes $7,000 on his bill. And Pesci, obviously we're going to get into all the specifics of that scene, but he smashes him over the head with a bottle because he tells him that he owes $7,000. He basically says, piss off. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody tells Tommy what to do in this movie.
Yeah, Tommy, of course, played by Pesci. Henry Hill, of course, played by Ray Liotta. But yeah, I mean, that scene's just absolutely phenomenal, which kind of leads us. Actually, that is the scene that we were kind of leading up to.
Yeah, it leads into the scene. They're both in the same place, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where they first start talking about the heist. And Pesci's telling the story where he says, all right, I'll tell you something. Go blank your mother, bing, bang, pow. And he's telling the whole story.
Yes.
And then, Ray Liotta laughs and he says, you're a funny guy. Yeah. And Pesci looks back at me and says, funny how? What do you mean? The way I talk? Funny how?
Do I amuse you?
What's funny about it? Let me understand. I'm funny like I'm a clown. Do I amuse you? Do I make you laugh? And that of course, is
it's an iconic scene, but what's really funny about that scene is it wasn't even originally in the script. What happened was Joe Pesci, when he was younger, he used to work at a bar, and wise guys used to come in there and get drinks and stuff, and he was a waiter, and he had a similar altercation with it where he said to a wise guy, "Oh, you're funny," and then the wise guy started doing this to them. So Joe Pesci had this actually happen to him in real life, and he told Scorsese about it. Scorsese didn't put it in the script because he wanted everybody's reaction to be totally genuine. So he just had Pesci start doing it, and I mean, what you see in the movie is just what happened. His take ends up being, nobody talks about GoodFellas without saying, how am I funny? Am I a clown?
Yeah. Oh, I've repeated that line at least 1,000 times.
Exactly. Everybody talks. If you're talking about if you're not talking about GoodFellas, just those movies. You hear somebody say, I'm funny and funny how?
Yeah. You stuttering prick you.
You stuttering prick.
When he basically says that he fooled Ray Liotta into thinking, and that's when he slams the bottle over him. What, are you going to come over here and embarrass me in front of my friends? He smashes the the bottle over his head. And that's just what's so funny about, throughout this entire movie. Like, people are complaining. Like, they make light. Like, you literally are ending people's lives, and they act as if it's nothing.
Yeah,
Like, it's just funny the way they do it.
It's funny to watch. It's just messed up on our parts, but I'd say most people probably laugh at the same things we're laughing at in this movie.
Yeah, like when they kill Samuel Jackson's character Stax, and he's asking him to bring the coffee to go, or when they, he said, "Oh, you got blood on the shoes," or there's just so many, scenes.
And that guy he owes the money to, they end up. Then after that, they become partners with him. They get Paulie to go in and be partners with him. All Paulie's going to do is just start ordering all this stuff. They say it, like they. Paulie they get a hold of this place, and all they do is they start running credit up, and they're getting stuff delivered in the front door, and they're selling it out the back at half price, basically. And all goes profit to them. Eventually they burn this guy's business to the ground. That's really what happened back then.
That's exactly what happened. And it was called. I think it was called the Coco Lounge.
No, something like it might have been the Coco Lounge. The Coco
Tiki
Cabana
Lounge
pops up. Coco Cabana pops up later. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I forgot the name of the original business that they take over, but he's having a meeting with Paulie, and he basically tells him, he says Tommy's a bad kid, and Paulie goes, Tommy's a bad kid. What am I supposed to do? Shoot him? And he goes, well, it wouldn't be such a bad idea.
Paulie gets that frozen face.
Yeah.
Looks at him.
Yeah, it's like that awkward pause. Like the guy's like, "Is Paulie gonna kill me?" Like he was like so. That's one
of the good things. It's like that's another thing this movie does really good. It shows like dominance. Like in Paulie doesn't say a lot throughout this movie. There's a couple parts where he definitely says some stuff, but like a lot of times that Paulie doesn't say anything. Right. And, like you see him saying something, or in this case, he just goes frozen and doesn't say a fucking word, and the guy knows exactly why. You can see that Paulie doesn't like what he just said, and you better not say it again, basically.
Yeah, exactly. and that's the scene where he starts describing what Paulie's going to do. He says, "Business bad? Fuck you, pay me."
Yeah, pay me.
Blah 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 blah. And then and then he says,
struck by lightning, pay me.
Yeah. And then he says they bring in a $200 case of booze and they sell it for $100, but it's a full profit because they're just stealing it from the guy who they're supposed to be partners with.
And then this guy's credit goes up and up and up until he can't pay it, and then they declare bankruptcy, burn the place down, take the insurance money, and call it a day.
Which is when, while it's burning down, you see Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci sitting out there in the car, and they're just having like a casual conversation.
Yeah, casual conversation about how they're going to go meet. Joe Pesci's trying to bang this girl, and then that leads to Ray Liotta meeting Lorena Bronco,
his eventual wife. They're just sitting there, and that first date that he goes there, he doesn't even talk to her, doesn't look at her. He just wants to get out of there as soon as possible because he has business.
Rushing out the door and stuff.
Yeah,
and he doesn't show up to the second date.
Right. Yeah, he stiffs her the second time, and then she shows up. He's on the corner talking to the mobsters, which is what he used to see as a kid, and now he's one of those people.
Yeah, now he's attracted to her. He's like, I gotta admit, she looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the next infamous, shot, all those long shots that we were talking about before with the I'm gonna go get the papers, is where he brings her on their first real date to the Copacabana, and there's that huge line out front. And everybody's waiting on this line. He goes, I like going this way. It's better not waiting. It's better than waiting in line. He takes her in the back, and they go through the kitchen. And again, it's this whole one long shot where you can only imagine how many times they had to shoot it, because it starts with them getting out of the car outside, and they go downstairs, walk through these hallways, then it leads to the kitchen. Eventually, they get out to the floor where the guy's performing. They bring the table out. They place it down. This is it's all in one shot. There's no takes on it. I mean, to get that done right and to make it look as stylish as Scorsese did it, it's awesome.
Yeah, and he's just like you could tell he's just like a big shot throughout the entire scene. Like he knows everybody. Like he sees a couple kissing. He's like, you two, I come here every week. You guys are blah blah blah. And then he's in the kitchen and he's hugging everybody. He knows all the chefs and everything else. So
and she's looking at it like something she's never seen before too, because most people don't get to see something like that, because you're talking about one of the hottest clubs in New York at the time, the Copacabana, and he's walking to this lady in the back door. He's getting a table brought out, put down right in front of everybody, personally for him, and she's looking at him like, all right, I kind of like this guy.
Well, yeah, I think at that point, and then she even asked him. She says, "You just tipped everybody $20." She said, "What do you do?" She said, "Construction." But I think at that point, and then she says, "You don't even have calluses on your hand." And I think at that point, she probably puts two and two together, and she realizes that this guy's doing something that he'd be doing something that he probably shouldn't be doing. But
I don't think she minds it too much.
She doesn't mind it. She even later goes on in the movie
well.
and says that she looked at him as a hero. He did what he had to do for his family, looked at him almost as like a blue-collar worker, even though basically what he was doing was taking from blue-collar workers, when he's stealing the trucks and everything else.
Well, yeah, she definitely enjoys the fruits of what he does, regardless of whether or not she fully admits it to herself.
Oh, 1,000%.
There's that part where she wants to go shopping, and he gives her like $5,000 to go shopping.
Right.
Remember, she's like, I need like that much.
Right. And I thought it was brilliant how they filmed a lot of the scenes, and when she wasn't even talking, sometimes it would just flip to her narrating, like the scene where she had him on the bed with the gun to his face, and she said, what I didn't want to give. Basically, she said in a nutshell when she found out that he was cheating on her, that she didn't want to surrender him to her. She didn't want to lose. But I just thought it was cool how it flipped who was narrating the movie. It just kept you on your heels.
This is probably the best narrated movie of all time. And honestly, if you're going to talk about best narrated movies, probably the top 5 are all going to be Scorsese movies. Put like Wolf of Wall Street in there, this and there, Casino in there. Like Martin Scorsese has a tendency to Departed also. His movies are generally narrated, but this one in particular, like the narration in this movie is just spot on accurate. It goes so well with that whole entire thing. The whole entire movie, it flows so well with the narration here. That's definitely something that needs to be pointed out about it.
Oh, that's what hits me time and time again. And then they set up the robbery. They walk in there. They steal $420,000 without using a gun.
It's the biggest heist in the country's history
at the time.
That's Lufthansa. The Lufthansa place used to still be up the block from here.
I know that. Yeah.
Right over my house. Yeah.
Yeah. But the guy that they, I'm just an interesting fact that I know since I was watching it. The security guard that basically turned his eyes to let them steal the money. He was in Dumb and Dumber. He was the villain in Dumb and Dumber that gets killed by the rat poison.
Yeah, he's one of the the goons. And
one of the goons of Dumb and Dumber. But then they steal the $420,000, and he said that they do it without using a gun. So it just shows you, how they take advantage of people and how easy it is.
Yeah, what a different world it was back then. Back then, no cameras or anything like that. You were able to just get a key and, cut like 10 people into it, and you're able to walk in and do this. Today, forget about it.
Right.
Today, you can't fart without somebody catching it on camera.
Oh, God, yeah. It's just a world. Like you said, even though it's only, 30 years ago, it's just a completely – well, it was supposed to take place earlier.
It's like 50 years ago.
Yeah, 50 years ago, yeah. But still, it's just a completely different world, with technology nowadays. And then you fast forward. What's her name again? The wife again of Henry Hill.
Henry Hill's wife in the movie.
Yeah, Karen, right?
Yeah.
So she ends up calling him, and she tells him that the guy across the street who he was introduced to earlier in the movie when they were at, I guess, like a country club like atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he hit her or tried to force
her. He tried to force himself on to her, and Henry Hill wasn't too happy about that when he got home.
That was a really important scene though for Karen's character development.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when she gives her the gun and stuff. But walks across the street and pistol slaps the guy like 10 times in the head, and then he comes back and hands this girl the gun, with the blood still covering it, and she says, "What does she say?"
Well, at that point. Earlier in the movie, like we were talking about the Coca Cabana, you kind of still felt a little bad for her because you were kind of like, well, maybe she doesn't know exactly what he does. Maybe she just thinks he's a big shot. At that point, there's no mistake. She sees him, like you said, go over there and nearly kill the guy, punch him in the head 10 times with a gun. Then he walks up to her with blood in the gun, hands it to her.
And she says, "Gotta be honest, it really turned me on."
Yeah, she basically says, listen, I know, and she narrates. Again, it's narration. It's not coming directly out of her mouth.
Yeah.
It's basically her thoughts that are running through her head. And she basically says, listen, I know my friends, all of them would have told me to run away that second. But I'm going to be honest. It kind of turned me on as he handed her a gun. And at that point, she knows what he is, but she's in love with him. And then it fast forward straight to the wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the wedding, they have that great. In the wedding, they have everybody handing them envelopes, and you see your eyes lighting up. We can only imagine what was in all those envelopes. Probably like tens of thousands of dollars between all of them. And you see her eyes lighting up, and then they start dancing for the first dance, and she gets worried that somebody's going to take the envelopes and stuff like that. You can see that she's getting real accustomed to the lifestyle really fast.
Yeah, I mean, you see people handing you thousands of dollars in those fancy looking envelopes, and she's starting to accept the way of life. Now, she definitely later sees some challenges when she meets all the women and with when they're painting all their faces and everything else, and she says, I don't know if I'd be able to live a life like this. But at that point in time, she's all aboard. She's in love with this
Yeah.
guy. She's kind of ignoring all the warning signs, and she's just going along with it. She's enjoying everything that comes along with it.
Yeah,
But then
I definitely think that she had no problem living it. I mean, regardless of what she's saying in that movie, I think that at the end of the day, the benefits outweighed the cons at that point in the movie, at least. I
No,
mean,
no, she literally says right after
yeah,
that scene, she talks about how she basically becomes a brainwashed into thinking how she's glad she has the type of husband that she's glad she has the husband that's willing to
willing to go
stick
out.
his
Yeah,
neck out there and be a blue collar worker. So she's completely on board with his way of life.
yeah,
You know?
definitely.
And then that kind of that brings you to kind of the shine box scene a little bit later on in the movie.
The shine box scene is infamous, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if it's the most memorable one from Goodfellas, but the shine box line is the one I use the most, which is they're in Henry, the three of them, Pesci, Deniro, and Liotta are hanging out in the bar or whatever, and it's also the night that this guy Billy Batts got home from prison, and he's in there with a couple of his friends, and everybody's
Now,
drinking and
now,
stuff.
what's important to point out about Billy Batts, he's a made man because that later
Yes, yes,
so
that's the problem.
you
Yeah, Billy
find out
Batts is the
with
made
Joe
guy, and
Pesci
none of
later
them
on.
are made guys.
Right.
Yeah, and none of them are made guys. And this guy Billy Batts is a made guy, and that means they're not really supposed to touch him. But this guy keeps breaking Tommy's balls, and Tommy's got a real short fuse. And he keeps warning him, he's like, "Stop doing it, stop doing it." The guys, Joe Pesci used to basically shine his shoes with a shine box. So the guy keeps saying to him, "Why don't you go get your shine box? Get your shine box." And you can see Pesci's really getting pushed to the edge. And then eventually Billy Bat's like, "All right, everybody calm down. Let's just have a drink. Let's just have a drink." And he seems like it's over. And he turns to, "First, go get your fucking shine box." And then obviously Pesci just explodes or whatever. And then, eventually it's
Pesci's there with a date.
yeah, he's with a date. And then he leaves with the girl. He goes, "Keep
Yeah.
him here.
Keep
Keep
me
him
here.
here.
You listen to me. You keep me here. You keep me here. So he walks the date out, and then he rushes back as soon as he can. And at that point, the bar's emptied out. It's just it's just Billy Batts, De Niro, Ray Liotta that are in the bar at the time.
And Pesci starts stabbing the guy. They lock the door so nobody else can come in.
Yeah.
That ultimately brings you back to the opening scene with him kicking in the trunk and them going to dispose of the body and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And another, I like the way, I love the way that De Niro, once Pesci leaves for the first time, and he goes, "I didn't do anything wrong," and then De Niro goes, yeah, you insult him a little bit, little bit.
No, how about Pesci's line after he stabs this guy 20 times, because at the time they're at the bar that Ray Liotta's Ray Liotta's running and stuff. And Pesci stabs this guy like 20 times in his chest. The guy's on the ground bleeding to death. And all Pesci has to say is looks up and goes, "Sorry, I didn't mean to get blood on your floor."
The way he said it, though, because his face looked like he was like upset.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
and your first thought as a human being is, well, Pesci actually feels a little bit bad that he literally just killed a guy who really didn't deserve to be killed. And most normal human beings would feel horrible about that. He looks as if he's almost going to cry. And then he looks at Ray Liotta. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to get blood on your floor. And I just thought that was hysterical. I was dying of laughter when I saw that, because you really get to see the types of people that they are. And then he's in the trunk, and then it kind of brings you back to the original scene.
Yeah, then they end up at Tommy's mom's house
because they need a shovel.
Yeah, because they need a shovel, and that's actually Martin Scorsese's mom plays that role of the mother.
I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting.
And then that leads to that whole entire scene with I'm talking about the painting. They're saying it looks like Billy Batts is in the trunk and stuff, and a lot of that scene was actually another scene that was totally improvised. He's asking his mom for the knife in order. He says to cut the hoof.
Right.
He's like, he goes, "It's a sin, Mom. I need
yeah,
cut it out."
Because they got blood all over him, so he tells the mom that they hit a deer. And then she, and then they're eating, and she goes, "Henry, what's wrong with you? You don't talk much. You don't talk much."
Yeah.
And then he sees the knife. He says, "Mom, I gotta borrow this." And it was just such a great overall scene, and she's making them dinner at like 3 in the
Yeah,
morning.
3 in the morning.
Yeah.
I love also how she's like, Tommy, when are you gonna get a nice girl and settle down? He goes, Mom, I get a nice girl every night and I settle down. Next morning I wake up, I'm free again.
I'm with you. I love you, Mom. Yeah. And then obviously it fast forwards, and then it kind of, obviously you saw what happens at the beginning of the movie in that scene where they have to stab him 4 times, they shoot him, and then they bury the guy. But it's just a great lead up to the scene. And then the next scene that really stands out to me is the spider scene. And you see him now.
Did we skip over the jail scene? Have we passed the jail?
I don't think. No, maybe we did. Did we skip over the jail part? I don't think so. Did we?
We talk about Spider, then we'll talk about the jail part. It might be a little unchronological. I'm not positive on it.
Yeah, maybe we did. Maybe we did skip over the jail scene. All
right,
let's talk.
Keep going, Spider, and we'll get to jail.
All right. Well, so they get so you got the spider scene, which is another scene where it shows Joe Pesci really has no soul,
no remorse, no soul,
no remorse.
One of the ultimate. It's funny too because he's definitely like one of the most cold-hearted people that's like characters that's ever been played, along with like Joe Pesci from Casino. You know what I mean? Like that stereotypical character basically became Joe Pesci in the early '90s.
Right.
It's like one of like some of the most cool-hearted people ever, but like we love him. Like I love this character. Like I love this character, and maybe that says something about like the human condition or something like that. I think most people do.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. He's definitely like that typical temper. High temper, high-strung Italian.
Exactly, and he plays it so well. And what happens with the Spider thing is Spider is played by Michael Imperioli, who plays Christopher on The Sopranos.
Right.
And he's like he seems like a little kid. He's not a kid. He's like somewhere in his teens and stuff. He doesn't really know exactly. I don't know if he knows exactly how crazy these people are he's messing with. But he's serving him drinks at card games and stuff. And Pesci says you're moving too slow for me. And he goes, "What's the name of that famous western?" And they bring it up, the Cincinnati Kid or whatever it is. Pesci takes out his gun. He goes, "Dance, motherfucking dance!" And he starts shooting the ground or whatever. He accidentally shoots him in the foot. Poor guy ends up having to go to the hospital because he gets shot in the foot by a mobster who's drunk playing a card game that he's just supposed to be serving a drink to.
Right. And then Pesci turns it and makes him he thinks people should make him out to be the victim. He goes, "Oh, it was an accident. I don't know what the big deal is. Let him walk there. Let him walk there like he walks there to get my drinks. Let him crawl there.
Crawl, motherfucker."
And then he goes, "Don't make me feel upset. Don't make he makes him out to be the bad guy because he shot him in the foot and now he's upset about it." He said, "Don't make me feel bad about it. It was an accident." All right. And then it fast forwards. And by the way, I have it chronologically ordered. So the prison scene is actually up right after this.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew they were close.
But he so then it fast forwards to the very next scene, and he basically tells him to go blank himself. And then Deniro, as a joke, is egging him on. He said, "You're gonna take that? Oh my God, what does the world come to? Where Tommy's gonna take something like that?" And then he rips out the gun. He shoots him like 5 times in the chest.
Goes, "What? You breaking my balls over here? You breaking my balls, asking what the world's coming to?" Goes, "You're gonna dig the hole. I don't mind digging a hole."
Right, and then he blames Deniro for killing the guy because he was breaking his balls. He always blames everybody but himself. And then he goes, "I don't mind digging the hole." And then
Not the first hole I dug.
Yeah, it's not the first hole I dug. And then what gets them pinched and they all end up getting arrested was because they threatened the guy. I think it's in San Diego.
They go, no, it's not San Diego, it's Miami. They send Henry Hill and De Niro's character down there to basically, to get some money out, to get money from this guy who owes Paulie however much money it is. They go down there, they threaten to feed this guy to the tigers. Guy gives in, and then it turns out the guy that they were trying to feed to the tigers ends up having, I think it's his sister or sister-in-law, who's a typist for the FBI. And it basically causes a chain reaction. They all get brought down for it, and they all do a little bit of time. Like, they all get 6 or 7 years or something like that, depending on which one you're talking about, which goes to them in jail, which has that great thing where they're talking about how in jail, if you're a wise guy in jail, it's not the same as being in jail as it is for a normal person. They show them getting, like, lobsters brought in, all this food. Henry Hill's starting to sell drugs in there and stuff. He's got his wife bringing it all in. But it's just like, it's a really great it's a great 10
scene.
minutes in there. Dinner in the can was always something special.
Yeah, the pasta scene is one of the best scenes in the movie, where you see Paulie thinly slicing out the onion,
Onions,
and,
yeah.
and then you hear it's a it kind of flips between narration and them talking.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear Ray Liotta narrating, saying he always put the
Put
sauce was great,
too
but he
many
always put too many
onions.
onions
Too
in the
many
sauce.
onions in the
And
sauce.
then it fast forwards to Paulie actually talking in the scene, being like,
Don't put too many onions in the
"Don't put too
sauce.
many onions in the sauce." And then another character there, I forgot who it was, goes, how many tomatoes you put? How many cans of tomatoes you put in the sauce? He goes, 2. How many onions? 3. That's too many onions. It's too many. It was just really funny, and it kind of reminds you of the typical, I guess, Italian Sunday dinner where they're all making the pasta and everything else. But like
Yeah,
you
that's
said, they're living like kings.
yeah. Well, when you're talking about food in Italian, it's like not especially Italian monster movies. Food always seems to be a big component. In The Godfather, it definitely was. And this is, all these movies. Sopranos, forget about it. Sopranos. They're eating every other scene, stuff like that. Something to do with the Italian, organized crime and food. Just I don't know, seems to just click together in these movies.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, he's doing what he has to do to survive while he's in there. He's selling drugs to the prisoners.
Yeah.
And he has that excuse while he's there,
Yeah,
right?
where he gets out, and Paulie doesn't want him doing that. He tells him that.
Paulie recognizes that, right?
Yeah.
And he gets out. I think the initial sentence was actually 10 years. He gets out in 5. And Karen's there to pick him up after she had that whole scene where she was fighting with him because they show how she's sneaking everything in, but she sees the lady that he was cheating on is on the list, so she went there to visit him, and he said, "What do you want me to do?" And, blah, 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 blah. And so he's out, and then that, to me, was the next important scene because that really shows you where this is headed. He gets out,
exactly.
and
Paulie
Paulie knows, Ray Liotta doesn't know.
That's actually another scene with a lot of food where he goes to Paulie's house and they're having their first dinner. Like another one of those scenes where you see like all this Italian food. You're just like, you're getting hungry, like watching it. Like, oh.
Right.
Yeah, he goes there and Paulie warns him. He says, I understand you did what you had to do in there to survive, but don't do it out here. And obviously at that point, Ray Liotta's, the day he gets out, he goes down to Cleveland. He said, literally the day he gets out, he goes down to Cleveland to pick up a whole bunch of drugs to bring back up the cell. Before he even goes to Paulie's house, this happened.
Yeah.
So by the time Paulie already tells him this, he's already full steam ahead, and he knows what he's going to do. And obviously, eventually, he brings in Tommy, and he brings Tommy and Jimmy to help him move the drugs. And then from there it just snowballs basically to where we get eventually.
He basically in that scene, Paulie's basically telling him, listen, if you do this, all bets are off. And, he doesn't even give it a thought. Henry Hill just said, he's all gung-ho. He's like, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Exactly.
And then, he basically becomes a drug dealer. Essentially, that's what he is.
Massive drug addict, too.
Yeah, and a massive drug addict. He's got his other girlfriend making the drugs for him, telling him that she loves him. And she's been in a bunch of movies, too. I can't think of the actress's name, but, she's another one of those, I know that famous face type thing in Hollywood. Yeah, but, she was in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, ultimately, that leads, the first half of the movie is very much like a high note in Goodfellas, I feel like, too. Like, when you're watching the first half of the movie, you get the whole thing where you introduce them for the first time, like what you told. Like, there's so much stuff in the first half of the movie that's almost, like, exhilarating. And then when you get to, like, the second half of the movie where you start seeing how these guys are screwing up and stuff, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's still just as great. I don't know if it's as fun, though. When you're watching this and you're seeing them screw up, you're just like, oh, what are these guys? What is he doing? What's he doing?
Yeah. You feel like they're like wasting everything.
Exactly.
And then that kind of brings you to, I guess, the Lufthansa heist, which is the most famous. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, Lufthansa heist, it's a huge famous thing that they did. They ripped off all this money and they get everybody involved. And basically, in the movie, what happens is they get away with all this money and stuff. And yet again, like I'm saying, it's like on the second half of this movie, you see all these people that they get away with the biggest heist, whatever, history of the United States, whatever it is. And these guys are so stupid that they go out and one of them's buying a new Cadillac, one of them's bought his wife a new mink coat and stuff. And, Jimmy's telling everybody don't buy anything, but these guys are just, at the end of the day, these guys aren't master criminal minds, most of them.
Yeah.
These guys are not educated, like dumb idiots. Don't get me wrong, I love these dumb idiots, but they're not like educated people to realize that maybe you shouldn't be going out and buying mink coats and Cadillacs after you just did this huge heist. And you see, like, it's another thing, you're just looking at them like, what are these people doing?
Right. And the one character we didn't bring up who said, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the guy with the wigs. He sold the wigs. He sets
up the whole entire thing.
He sets up the whole entire thing, and he's one of those
people. He's always nagging him. He's asking for money advances and stuff on this heist and stuff like that. And eventually what it leads to is what I think is probably the best scene of the movie. Might not be your favorite scene to watch, but it's the best scene of the movie, is when they decide to just clip everybody.
Yeah,
Anybody who's involved in the Lufthansa heist gets killed all in this one scene, and it's played with the piano exit from Layla, Eric Clapton in the background. And it's probably the best choreographed piece of cinema. Probably my favorite thing to watch in terms of being choreographed and like everything hitting the notes perfectly. Again, with those long shots where the guy's hanging in the meat locker. And
right.
they do that long zoom out shot. Again, it's not one of those shots where it's like these long shots where everything's got to be queued up perfectly. You got to hit it right. And then they bring in the music, like the whole entire Layla, piano exit. And it's just like when you click all these things together, you get something that's like magical.
Right. And the narration throughout the scene,
the narration,
when he's being hung in the locker, he talks about how it took 2 days to thaw him
2 days
out.
to thaw the body out for the autopsy.
It was just an incredible scene, and it really goes to show you how ruthless. To me, he was the most ruthless character. Robert De Niro's character, Jimmy, he was all about himself. He was willing to kill whoever it took. He had we talked about Pesci, he had no soul. Pesci was kind of a guy that was based off of emotion. He's going to act off the,
Exactly. Jimmy Conway, on the other hand.
Very well thought out.
Yeah, very well thought out, and he knows exactly, there's no mystery to him.
It's all about him. He doesn't care about anybody but himself, and he's willing to kill whoever it takes for him to get to where he needs to be. And the whole time, he didn't plan on giving any of that money to anybody.
They go as far as to kill even Samuel Jackson as a cameo earlier in his career, where he plays the driver for the Lufthansa heist in this. And he was supposed to, they say he was supposed to get the truck, supposed to steal the truck from him and do the heist, and then afterwards he's supposed to dump the truck. And he's a drug addict, and instead of dumping the truck afterwards, he drove home with it, and the cops were able to trace the truck to him. And then that scene where Joe Pesci walks in, and he tells him to get out of bed, and shoots him in the back of the head. And then the guy Joe Pesci's with, Joe Pesci tells the guy to go make some coffee, and then he shoots Samuel Jackson in the head. And then Joe Pesci turns around to walk out of the house, and his friend's still trying to make coffee. He goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
No, he said, "Make the coffee to go." And
make the coffee to go. Let's make the coffee to go. That's what mine is.
And he actually starts bringing the coffee to go. He said, "I was kidding with you. Put the coffee down." And but then they obviously end up killing him. But De Niro,
he's the one who's hanging in the.
He's the one that's hanging in the meat truck. But De Niro does none of it. He has Pesci be the guy that does all this, and even in the scene in the car with the wig guy, Pesci's the one that stabs him in the back. So Pesci, in a way, and we know, you find out throughout the movie why Jimmy can't be made, and you find out why Ray Liotta can't be made. But in a way, Jimmy's almost acting as the boss.
He's definitely the boss of them three. I feel like, because in the movie, I feel like Jimmy's supposed to be their senior. Jimmy's supposed to be a little bit older, and especially in the movie when you see Henry Hill as a kid, you see Joe Pesci as a kid too. And at that point, Jimmy Conway, who's played by Robert De Niro, is already a grown man. So they're kind of like his protege almost. He's kind of the one who I guess brings them into the life.
Right, and then
they look up to him definitely.
And then you see De Niro get all excited because he knows. He's all about power. That's all he cares about.
Exactly,
and he finds out that Pesci is now going to be a made man, and obviously they can't be because they're not 100% Italian blood. And you find out that Pesci's going to be, and you see how excited De Niro is, and then you fast forward to the scene where him and Liotta are eating at the diner, and he's starting to realize Liotta that he's about to get killed, but De Niro is so excited or he's going to have him get killed. That's De Niro's plan. He realized that when he's going to send him to Florida. But De Niro's so excited that he's going to get into the club because Pesci, who's his right-hand man, is going to be made.
Yeah, and then of course Pesci walks in and he gets shot in the back of the head as revenge for the Billy Batts murder, which obviously is what opened the movie, and in the middle of the movie you get back to. And then if we go back to De Niro in the phone booth, he gets the call. He's tearing up basically. He's all mad and stuff. But at the same time, he realizes there's nothing they say it in the narration again. They talk about how there's nothing they could do about it because these are the rules, and he was a made guy and they're not.
Yeah, and to me, as I was watching, I'm like, he's not tearing because he loves Joe Pesci. He's tearing because
100%.
He's not going to be able to act as a made man. Basically,
exactly.
He's not going to have that power.
That was the only end. That was the only possible into that.
That was his only in, and that's all he thinks about. And then it starts to spiral out of control with the drugs and he's running around.
So leads to Henry Hill basically, getting totally caught up in not only selling drugs but doing drugs. there's that scene where he's driving around the town. And he thinks, I mean, the helicopter probably really was following him, I guess, but still, you see him in this crazy, wide-eyed, drugged-up state. And, he's looking up for helicopters and stuff, and he's running in and out of places. He's switching cars 5 or 6 times in order to lose them. The FBI catches up to him, which what's that line in that scene also? That's another really good line. When the FBI finally catches up to him, he says, hold on, I got it here.
I can't remember.
He says, "For a second, I thought I was dead, but then
Oh yeah.
For a second, I thought I was dead, but then I heard noise. I knew they were cops. Only cops talk. Only cops talk that way. If they've been wise guys, I wouldn't have heard a thing. I would have just been dead."
Right. When he's trying to drive the babysitter back to get her lucky hat because she can't fly without it.
She can't fly without the lucky hat. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But and then his wife Karen flushes the drugs down the toilet.
Drugs down the toilet. Who he owes, which then he owes money on. Which,
right.
Basically from there, just to spiral into the end from there. Just it's basically a rush to whether Henry's going to rat out Jimmy and Paulie and stuff, or they're going to kill him first.
Right, that's basically what it is.
That's basically what it is. Yeah,
they're going to kill him because Paulie completely turns on him, and rightfully so. When he goes to ask him for help, he gives him $3,200 for a lifetime. That's the way that Ray Liotta makes it out to be.
There's that scene where Ray Liotta and Deniro meet up, and again in narration you hear Ray Liotta saying, "If you're part of a crew, nobody ever tells you that they're going to kill you. It doesn't happen that way. There aren't any arguments, any curses like in the movies. So your murderers come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people you've cared about for your whole entire life. And it always seems to come to a time when you're the weak. It's coming at a time where you're the weakest and you most needed their help," which is where he finds himself. And again, narrate like you can't something like what I just read can't be read as dialogue.
Right.
In the movie. The narration is so important to this movie. Like without the narration,
it's the most important part. It's the most important part.
That's what makes this movie. Don't get me wrong. The movie's every aspect of this movie is great, but the narration is really what gets it.
Yeah, 100%. And when they
at the end,
go ahead. No, I'm saying what really drives them to realize they're going to need to rat them out is when Karen is basically De Niro sets up a hit for Karen. He tells her to go down the block and walk into the store.
You go down the block and look at the that's when they see what De Niro is really trying to do and stuff. And then Ray Liotta obviously turns switch coat. And then I'd like to mention also, this is a lot of my favorite movies break what they call the fourth wall, which is when characters aren't talking to characters on the screen or narrating. It's when they start talking to the audience. And in the last scene, that's how this ends. Well, yeah, pretty much the last scene. He's in court or whatever, and he's testifying against Jimmy. He gets him sent to jail, and he goes into witness protection. And then at the end of the scene, he stops talking to Jimmy or to the judge or the lawyer or whatever, and he turns and he focuses right on you as the audience. And he gets up and he walks out and stuff. So really, breaking the fourth wall is really hard to do right, and it's definitely a time it was done really well. Don't get me wrong. There's other ones. Deadpool breaks the wall really good also.
Yeah. But you're right. There's several times in the movie where it does that, and yeah. It was just it was a great movie.
Great.
The ending was kind of uneventful. It kind
of
felt.
I said, the first half of GoodFellas is better than the second half of GoodFellas. But the second half of GoodFellas is not bad by any means. It's great. Just the first half is the more entertaining. There's a lot of movies. A lot of Scorsese movies are like that. Wolf of Wall Street's like that.
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street, the first half where, he's living this crazy life, doing all these drugs, getting with all these women and stuff like that. And then, it's the deterioration. It's the second half of the story. Same thing with this.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't mean that the second half is not as good. It's just
wrapping up the story. Yeah.
The first half's also like the stuff that you want to see, the stuff that if you're these guys, the memories you want to relive in your head are from the first half of this movie, not from the second half of this movie.
Which is really what a life of crime probably usually is. Whether you're in a mob, whatever you do, usually if you're a successful criminal, usually the beginning is going to be a life of luxury and a life of kind of like Scarface, a life of luxury and a life of living in the fruits of your labor, I guess, if you want to call it labor. And then the second half of your time as a criminal, it's usually you on the run and more often than not getting killed or ending up in jail, which in this case, instead he rats them out and he's in the witness protection.
I think this movie balances it out really well, too. Scorsese's a genius when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
He does that in a lot of movies. Like I said, Wolf of Wall Street is very similar. But, this movie's just put together so perfectly, filmed great. The music is unbelievable. The wardrobes the wardrobes, the suits these guys wear, or like you look at them and you're like, wow, in every scene.
Yeah. And overall, it's a great movie. Definitely one of the top, probably 5 mobster movies ever.
Yes.
And it's definitely worth a watch. I think it's definitely something. If you haven't seen, you definitely need to watch it. I slightly prefer Casino. I'm looking forward to maybe doing a review on that eventually.
I'm a Casino fan to this also, although I do. I mean, they're both right. They're both neck and neck, in my opinion.
Oh, they're both neck and neck is right, and
I think this one's more memorable, but I prefer Casino, if that makes any sense.
that's a good
I
way
think
to
that's
put
how I
it.
look at it.
Although I do think Casino
Casino's also
definitely has some scenes that
it
really
definitely has
stand out.
memorable parts. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100% does. I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but I think also Goodfellas and Casino are very similar movies. You know, both mob movies, extremely similar cast, same director, same writer. You know, and they both only came out 3 or 4 years apart. And this was also like the original. So in some ways, you probably make an argument that Casino could be looked at as like almost a sequel to this. I mean, obviously, it's not a sequel to the character.
It kind of, at least loosely is.
Yeah, exactly. Like Joe Pesci plays the same type of guy. Robert De Niro's playing the comp collector one. I mean, Robert De Niro's not nearly as ruthless, I guess, in Casino. I mean, there's differences, definitely. But
yeah, of course, the characters are different.
yeah, but yeah, I love Goodfellas. Goodfellas is great. If you haven't seen Goodfellas, go rent it. Find a copy. It's probably on TV today at some point.
Yeah, oh yeah, you got to watch it. But yeah, we're gonna, like I said at the top of this, we're gonna try to be live later today. Hopefully you guys come by for that. If you listen to the whole podcast, thank you guys for listening. And yeah, Greg did a great job. And guys, as always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give both of us a thumbs up.
There
Cheers.
you go.